Rules as written or make it up as you go? That's what we're going to talk about today on Greyhawk Grognard. Just a reminder, this is a collaboration being done with Joe the Lawyer, Eric Tenkar, and for the month of January, Don Samora. Welcome aboard, Don. If you're watching their videos on my channel, please go ahead and like and subscribe to them. And if you're watching me on their channel, please do the same for me. That said, let's get going. So the question of how do you play Dungeons and Dragons? Are you supposed to just adhere to what the rules say inviolably, or are you given a lot of latitude? A lot of different people approach this a lot of different ways, and it's not a red blue answer, right? It's a spectrum. On the one end you must use the rules only as written, period, the end. And the other end of the spectrum is you can do whatever you want. And most people are somewhere in the middle. Some people are going to be more on this end of the spectrum, some people could be more on that end of the spectrum, but very few people are going to be absolutists on either side. And I wanted to explore this through the lens of what Gary Gygax has said over the years, because you might not realize it, but Gary was wildly inconsistent on this point. And it's fun to go through. So let's start with the DM's guide, right? We have my well-worn copy of the DM's guide from back in the day, and just reading from the pretty much the very first page of the DM's guide here. And bear in mind that there are really, when we talk about playing within the rules or not, there's really two parts to that question. The first part is, do you ignore dice rolls? Because if the rules say you roll the die and this happens, and if you decide to ignore that, you're ignoring the rule. The other is you're actually bringing in new rules, or you never use a rule, or you replace a rule with something else. And that's kind of when you do that consistently, that's a different kind of rule bending. But I'm talking about both here, and so is Gary. Um, so in the very beginning, in the introduction, he's talking about wandering monster rolls and how they could adversely impact the game. Um, uh, uh, they are gathered together, the players, are gathered together and eager to spend an enjoyable evening playing their favorite game with the expectation of going to a new, strange area and doing their best to triumph. They are willing to accept the hazards of the dice, be it loss of items, wounding, insanity, disease, death, as long as the process is exciting. But every time you throw the monster die, a wandering nasty is indicated, and the party's strength is spent trying to fight their way into the area. Um, and then he goes on, rather than spoil such an otherwise enjoyable time, omit the wandering monsters indicated by the die. Don't allow the party to kill them easily or escape unnaturally. Just don't have them show up. Ignore the die roll that says you're having a wandering monster. So he's flat out telling you, if something like a wandering monster die is going to ruin the excitement of the game for the players, just ignore it. And that same principle could be extended to other things as well. Um, you, like a hit die or something like that. Um, if your work as a DM has been sufficient, the players will have all they can handle upon arrival, so let them get there, give them a chance. The game is the thing, and certain rules can be distorted or disregarded in favor of play. So right there, Gary is very much pro make it up within the boundaries of the game itself, right? So, don't throw out entire areas of the game and replace them with something else. Don't take the magic system from Call of Cthulhu and put it into your D&D game and call it D&D. That's not what he's saying here. Hi, everybody. Please help me keep Greyhawk alive by liking this video and subscribing. It really does help. You can also become a member of the channel or support me on Patreon and get early access to my videos, exclusive content, free or at-cost copies of my Greyheim Adventures modules, and more. Thanks, and now back to the show. And then we jump to the very end of the book, in the afterword here, um, where he states it just even more forcefully. It is the spirit of the game, not the letter of the rules, which is important. Never hold to the letter written, nor allow some barracks room lawyer to force quotations from the book upon you. If it goes against the obvious intent of the game, as you hew the line with respect to conformity to major systems and uniformity of play in general, be also certain that the game is mastered by you and not by your players within broad parameters given in the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons volumes. You are the creator and final arbiter by ordering things as they should be. The game as a whole first, your campaign next. and your participants. Thereafter, you will be playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons as it was meant to be. May you find as much pleasure in doing so as the rest of us do. So he is very much advocating for put the game first. Don't let a rule get in the way of having fun. And this is, of course, at odds with what a lot of people today say. Where we have people who are very much in favor of rules as written, and that's how we did it back in the '80s, and that nobody did it that way back in the '80s. Nobody played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons exactly as written in the rules. You can't. They're self-contradictory in places, so it's absurd on its face to say that, but people do. But Gary disagreed with that, at least for a while. Because later on, in a couple, this was 1979 in Dragon number 26. Uh, Gary wrote an article on D&D and AD&D and how they're different. And in this, he says, um, while D&D camp, he's making a differentiation between Dungeons and Dragons and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons here. While D&D campaigns can be those which feature comic book spells, 43rd level Balrogs as player characters, and include a plethora of trash from various and sundry sources, Jesus. AD&D cannot be so composed. Either a DM runs an AD&D campaign or else it is something else. This is clearly stated within the work, except it was kind of the opposite was stated in the work. And it is a mandate which will be unchanging even if AD&D undergoes change at some future date. While DMs are free to allow many unique features to become part of their campaigns, special magic items, new monsters, different spells, unusual settings, and while they have free reign in devising the features and facts pertaining to the various planes which surround the prime material, it is understood that they must adhere to the form of AD&D. Otherwise, what they will referee is a variant adventure game. DMs still create an entire million. Um, so he's definitely laying a line in the sand here. He goes on. Um, uh, 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 the advantages of such a game are obvious because the integral features are known and immutable. There can be no debate as to what is correct. A meaningful dialogue can be carried on between DMs regardless of what region they play in. Players can move from one AD&D campaign to another and know at the very least the basic precepts of the game, that magic users will not wield swords, that fighters do not have instant death or or to give or take with critical hits or double damage, that strange classes of characters do not rule a campaign, that the various deities will not constantly be popping in and out of the game at the beck and call of the player characters, etc. AD&D will suffer no such abuses, and DMs who allow them must realize this up front. The best feature of a game which offers real form, however, is that it will more readily lend itself to actual improvement, not change, but true improvement. So yeah, he's really hitting it hard here. Um, but then he goes on. Conformity to a more rigid sort of rules also provides a better platform from which to launch major tournaments as well. So he's talking about AD&D as a tournament game, and then he goes on about one that Bloom did for, I guess, for Origins or Gen Con or something. D&D will always be with us, and that is a good thing. The D&D system allows the highly talented, individualistic, and imaginative hobbyist a vehicle for devising an adventure game form, which is tailored to him or her and his or her group. One can take great liberties with the game and not be questioned. Um, uh, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, with its clearer and easier approach, is bound to gain more support, for most people play games, not live them. So okay, there's Gary in 1979, the same year that the DM's Guide came out, which seems to say something different. Uh, but it's also little context for this article that he wrote, where he's making such a stark delineation between Dungeons and Dragons and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons being two very different things. This was coming around the time of the Dave Arneson lawsuit, and where Dave was claiming that he should be getting royalties for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and in a certain way, I think it's fair to intuit that this article was kind of laying the groundwork for, no, they're not the same game. They're two very different games. And that's why Dave doesn't deserve to have any royalties. I don't think he's making up a position as regards AD&D and the expectation you're supposed to play the rules as written, as much as you can within boundaries of what was laid out in the DM's guide, but you can't take that context out of this. So that take that for what it's worth. Now, even later on, Gary wrote a book called Role-Playing Mastery, and this came out much later. This was 1987. So we're talking 8 years after this. Is after Gary had been uh, uh, removed from TSR. Um, and in here, he seems to, the pendulum swings back the other way again, where he's talking about changing the game to meet the expectations of the players. Um, uh, in all cases, the game master will have developed the special features of the campaign and play within the campaign. Remember, he's not talking about Dungeons and Dragons here specifically. He's talking about games in general, but the principle does apply here. A game master of the expert sort will advise the group that following a certain line will lead them into a game campaign form that will not be compatible with the campaigns of other groups. The masterful GM will know how to mitigate this incompatibility so as to enable the group to still have normal contact and communication with other enthusiasts and not become isolated or a fringe element within the gaming community. He's not entirely warmed to the idea that people can make their own changes to the game, but at least acknowledging that it happens and that it can be done successfully. So there we are in terms of where Gary stands on it. In the DM's guide, he seems to say the game should come first, so feel free to bend the rules and bend some dice rolls. Then in Dragon Magazine, he comes along and says AD&D must be played as AD&D, or else you're playing something else, and it's a horrible variant, and you're an idiot. And then in later years, he seems to swing back to the idea that you can change, you can expect the game to change as play continues, but you just have to be aware of the fact that if it changes too much, you're actually playing something else, and your players need to be aware of that. I think he was being a little hard on the idea that in order to be able to communicate with other hobbyists, you need to be playing exactly the same game. Um, and of course, this was pre-internet, so he couldn't foresee at that time. The way that people bounce ideas off each other and they communicate and they can understand each other, even though they're playing somewhat differently in terms of house rules and stuff like that. But you know, at least he's not calling such editions a plethora of trash from various and sundry sources. So, so we got at least he's mellowed a little with age on that one. For me, I'm squarely in the middle. I love to tinker. I love to create variant rules and variant classes and spells and stuff, and I love to see them how they work in the game. And obviously you tweak them over time to make them work even better. But I also back in the day we would do exactly what he's railing against here, where we would take a arms law and claw law and use that as a combat system and still call it D&D. And he would be aghast at that, no doubt, because we were doing it with AD. We were playing with AD&D and calling it D&D and using arms law and claw law in it. So who knows what we were playing? But the idea is we were having fun, and according to the first Dungeon Master's Guide, that's the key. And that's where I sit. I love like I said, I love to tinker. I love a system that lets me tinker. I think AD&D does that admirably because it does have these discrete um, systems, and it's not all one unified system. I've talked about this in the past, but that said, that's one reason I like AD&D is because it does let you tinker. But and uh, Gary's seems to have been ambivalent on the point at various different points in his life. So we'll call it a draw. So anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you play rules as written? Do you think anything goes? Are you somewhere in the middle on the spectrum? I'm going to guess that's where most of you are because that's where most people are in general. If you're part of that subgroup of the OSR who believes that you must only play the rules as they were written in the book because that's how we did it. Well, no, we didn't do it back then. But I would still love to hear from you. Just everybody, keep it light. And if you haven't done so, I would really encourage you to please check out my Patreon and consider throwing me a couple bucks each month. It really does help. Every dollar I get through the Patreon or through my YouTube subscriptions, you know, uh, is a dollar that I don't have to earn by writing and selling stuff. So it gives me more time to work on free stuff that I can give away on the blog and more stuff here on the channel. So do consider it. Hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will talk to you all. Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.